What is good on my jig and fly tires out there? We're going to have some fun today on the Vice. We do get to discuss the new Fathom Bead now in a couple of fun colors. And we're also just excited because it is time for coho fishing. So grab your Vice, grab some tools, and let's have some fun. Let's get started on this big old jig fly. In the vise today, I have a very large hook. This is the Ahrex PR360. And this one happens to be in the size 4/0. We've already talked about this beautiful bead from Spawn. This is the Fathom Bead, 10 millimeter in pink. And I've got 10 wraps of 0.025 lead-free wire, just so as we get this wrapped down, I know that that bead isn't going to move much and all that good stuff. Not really using it to add weight. Believe me when I tell you there is more than enough weight involved with this bead already. Definitely well over a 1/4 ounce. So these things are heavy, and as far as where's that fly going to go, it's going to go down quickly. So keep that in mind. Just using some 6/0 thread. Of course, this is where you can beef up and feel good about it. So 210, 240, all that is into play. As far as where I'm going to start this fly or add my tail, I'm going just past where the curvature begins on this shank, and maybe 1/8 inch past that where that curve begins. Nothing crazy. And as far as the difficulty level on this fly or jig fly, whatever you want to call it, it's not a beginner fly, but it kind of is. So everybody has tied something similar to this previously if you've tied it all. We're just going to sort of exaggerate it or put it on steroids for lack of better term. We'll start with the Spawn Polliwog tail in purple. I'm going to go roughly 1 shank length. Give myself plenty of material to get that tied in, and then simply use my reference point of my thread base as far as where to tie that at. And you see how it gives a nice inline with the shank. Nothing crazy. I like that look. I like the way it's going to move, all that good stuff. We have our tail. And as far as the rest of this fly, it's going to be very feather heavy and not a lot of flash. So let's go ahead and put in just a kiss of flash right here in the back while we're here. And for that, I've got some fish flash Kreelex from MFC, this in silver. I'm just going to veil roughly 10 or 12 pieces over my thread. I'm going to do this in 2 different batches, one on top, one on bottom. So before I get this solidified, I'm going to smash it down with my finger and then hold it in place. If I do this right, what I'll get is, a spread of flash instead of just a line of flash. And then I can flip her over and do the same thing on the other side. And now I'll have essentially 360 flash coming off the shank with just 2 applications of flash. I don't have to sit and spin anything if I don't want to, although you surely could. Put this in a loop, spin her up, and then you definitely would have 360 multiple times. But this works just fine. So whatever you're in the mood for, that's what you should do. Get that all tied down. And now all we have to do is trim out. And for that, I'm just going to use the tail as my reference point and simply cut right past that. And voila. So now that purple tail still is going to show through, especially when it's wetted down. And all this is just going to be exaggerated. So as that tail absorbs water, it's going to kick and move a lot. And now the flash is going to move and kick based off where the tail goes. So it's not a stagnated flash. This stuff has movement. So here's where the fun part comes in. And yes, I understand our definitions of fun may differ. But to me, this is fun, and I am so excited about this color scheme. So this is one of those, again, I've talked previously in other videos, I love looking at lures and jigs and things from across all different sorts of fisheries, not simply flies, although flies are my favorite by far. Let me talk about this as I tie it in. All I have here is some Schlappen, but I've got it in 3 colors. So as I finish tying this in, you'll be able to start seeing I've got a fuchsia, a fluorescent fuchsia feather. I've got a Kingfisher blue Schlappen feather and a purple Schlappen feather, all wrapped in at the same time. I know it can be kind of a mess, but if you're patient and just stack those feathers, no problem. Let me get some chenille ready. And for the chenille, which is just simply going to act as a holder as well as offer a little accent color coming out, this is Cactus chenille size large in the fluorescent fuchsia. So I'll get that tied in very well. And we can move that thread all the way up to the front now. And we're going to treat this essentially like, most of the flies you've ever tied before. So we're simply going to use this as our underbody, so to speak. But you see how it's still going to give off glints of that flash through the body. And that's why we wanted to add flash coming off the back, because this on its own is going to get covered up quite a bit before we're finished. In a good way, though. Again, this is the color scheme I am most excited about this year. And yes, there's some continuation off of what worked previously. All that comes into play. But when you've played with salmon for a while, it comes to this, you see certain color schemes or movement schemes, and you're like, oh, that would crush it on such and such river. And then you start applying that. Tie your own stuff. Find out just how right or wrong you may have been. I can't think of a more fun interactive game than tying your own flies or your own jig, going out and catching fish. So now let's take all these Schlappen feathers, all 3 of them at once. Let's stand them up, make sure that those quills are lined up with each other. And now I'll begin to train all those fibers back at the same time. So once again, we've got a little bit of water in a dish sitting here on the tying desk. And just get all those feathers, all those fibers kind of playing together, and then we'll start wrapping. So I'm going to treat this as though it's a true palmer, meaning I'm not going touching wraps. I'm going spaced out wraps, especially considering this is a 4/0 hook. If I did touching wraps, I would need to stop halfway through and tie in another section of feathers. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I really like the idea of getting that extra movement because they're not stacked against each other. And so they breathe differently. It's a funny term to use as far as a feather, but it is the case. I'm just going to turn this slightly, get that thread right in that little V that we create. And if you see, there was maybe room for another full wrap here, but it's okay because I don't want to crowd what will be our final spot here. And just want to get one wrap right in front here so I know where those quills all sit. Is it necessary? Nope, but it's just part of how I like to tie. So if you want, get in here, get all 3 of those quills at once, and then just do a little housekeeping and trim out anything that doesn't need to be there. Pretty simple. And yes, the difficulty of course will come in from the 3 feathers at once. I'm sure not everybody is accustomed to wrapping multiple feathers at one time, but I will challenge you to give it a whirl. Be patient. All I'm doing now is releasing any of those trapped fibers with my little Stomfo comb, and you can see here there's no solid color, but there's a hints as it turns of all the colors that Coho love. What could be better? One last move here, and this one is going to match the vibe of the body, and so I'm putting a big old collar on here, all Marabou, and yes, we are going to repeat that body mentality. So again, I have 3 Marabou feathers stacked in the same order. So on the bottom will be fluorescent fuchsia. Next will be Kingfisher blue, finished of course with purple. So 3 Marabou feathers. They are not spay, they are simply blood quill Marabou feathers. Could you use spay feathers? Here's the tough part with spay feathers. They have a very, very strong quill. So if you do this with spay feathers, stick to that top portion of the feather. By the time you hit the midpoint, it's going to be too much quill. And that is why I like to use blood quill marabou versus a spay marabou for these. But if, you know, every once in a while it happens and you just don't have the right stuff, but you might have it in spay, I have no problem. I'm going to grab that before you can blink. It's just, I do keep in mind, I can't use all that feather. Some of that bottom stuff, just too much quill. And so if you have a plan before you get started, much better chance of that working out for you. So look how big and fluffy this is going to be. That's simply 2 wraps of 3 marabou feathers. That's all you need. At this point, just getting all that stuff coaxed back, trained where it needs to go, and then I'm going to start cleaning out some of that marabou that I don't need involved and find a space to get my thread through. And that is all we need. At this point, I can see those last bits of pink that are stuck on the underside. Now there's a little bit of blue, but I think it'll be all right. And once again, to the wetted fingertips, get all those fibers coaxed down, trained to stay out of the way a little bit. I can see that blue now. I don't want it there. That's too much of one chunk in one spot. So there's the fix. Just get it out of there. So you can see exactly how that fuchsia plays with the blue, plays with the purple. This is simply deadly. This is one of those you will automatically, your eye goes to it, whether you see it in my box or, you know, sitting in a bin, whatever it might be. This is what I was talking about with those, that every once in a while you see a color scheme or whatever it might be and just go, oh, there's the ticket. That is the magic. So I'm going to utilize, since these fibers are still a little bit wet, get myself a nice clean thread neck here. And I do want to jam some serious thread. And it's not simply just to get everything tied down secure. It's, again, butt up against that bead. I want to make sure that, to the best of my abilities, nothing's moving on this fly. And why? Well, we're chasing big, mean, angry fish. I don't want to catch one and have to throw this fly out, or this jig out, jig fly, whatever you want to call it. I want to catch a fish all day on this thing, put it in a box, dry it out, and go fish it again tomorrow. Like, if you tie these things right, the only real way you're going to lose them is eventually they'll wear out. But the truth is, we lose more on the bottom of the river and in trees and things of that nature than we do to, you know, oh, bent out a hook or broke something. No, that's not the case. Tie your flies very strongly and you won't have that issue. And it feels pretty good to know I landed 20 coho on this fly. You know, whatever it might be. I'm just saying you can make a strong fly. You know, a lot of people don't like the idea of justifying a 20 or 30 minute fly for, well, if that's the case, maybe fish a little better, fish a little slower, think about where you're putting that thing, and lose less. Otherwise, just embrace it and be like Pete and just tie. So there you have it, folks. 3 colors involved, and yet at the end of it all, let's brush this out a little, you have, at least in my opinion, one of the most pleasing to the eye combinations of movement and flash and color. So all you have to do now is get to an area that holds some salmon, get this thing involved, and tie a good knot and yell for the net. I hope you guys had fun. I always enjoy our time here. But if you do me a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe. We will see you all on the water.